Mark Weiss used to fly the Boeing 737 among many other planes as a commercial pilot. He's now the Director of International Operations for Reagan Aero Tech, among the many other aviation positions he's held in a long and rather distinguished career. Mark, your initial take on this, it's takeoff. I mean, give me your sense. Put me in the cockpit. What possibly could have gone wrong?
Well, there's a myriad of events that could have happened that could have caused this, but certainly takeoffs and landings are the most critical of a flight, typically, and as of course, proximity to the ground. And could have been a number of things. From the video, it didn't look like weather may have been a major factor or contributor to this. Certainly the age of the airplane and whether or not that aircraft had been maintained properly, the amount of training the crew had, whether there was some type of ingestion of a bird, if they had lost an engine, if something happened, if there was some type of an explosion on the aircraft. All of this is going to be dealt with, when the investigators are going to get on scene. You're going to have people from the manufacturer, which will be Boeing, people from the engine manufacturer, and there certainly people from the NTSB will offer their services because it was a U.S. manufactured aircraft. So there are going to be a lot of people that are going to go in and take a look at what the probable causes could have been.
Interestingly enough, you brought up weather. We're going to talk about some weather names, wet, dry, but they don't deal with weather. They do deal with perhaps this situation. Walk us through what that means. Wet earlier.
Well, we got scenarios, runway that could have contributed something to this. When you say wet or dry, it's really going to refer to whether there's precipitation, whether that could have been...
No, I was referring to, you were saying that because this was not their plane, you have wet or
wet
dry.
Lease.
Yes,
oh,
exactly.
You're talking about
yes,
wet
lease. Yes.
Oh, okay,
yes.
Different scenario. Yeah. Typically, a wet or a dry lease is how another company would obtain an aircraft if it's not their own. And the wet lease is when you would lease an aircraft that would include crew and maintenance. And so that would then be flown with your company's logo, but with a crew who's not necessarily used to your airport or the environment that they're working in. A dry lease is similar in that you're going to just lease the aircraft and you're going to provide the crews and the maintenance personnel. From what it sounds like, you're talking about a wet lease on this aircraft. So they used a crew that was not familiar with procedures for the airport or for the airline. However, they were qualified on that airplane. And that becomes a little bit different issue. So what you have to now look at is going back to any type of accident investigation. How much sleep did they have? What was their training like? Was there some type of problem in the cockpit? Did somebody get into the cockpit to cause a problem? I mean, there's, again, a myriad of opportunities that could have caused this to happen.
How long before we know? Because it does take a long time, doesn't it, these investigations?
Typically, yes, but if there's something that's outstanding, if they're going to find parts of the wreckage scattered in a few different places. Now, obviously, the aircraft took off, and from what eyewitnesses had said, it happened right after takeoff, but the airplane seemed to be intact as it was flying. That may lead investigators not to believe that it was an explosive situation, that there was no bomb on board the aircraft. So they're going to start looking at components of the aircraft. Then they're going to start looking at whether the engines were operating, whether the crew handled, if there was an emergency, did they handle it properly? Then it goes back to the training and it goes back to records. It's going to be a complicated and not an easy event to get an answer to, but they will get to the bottom of it. It's going to take, I would think, and an outside, it's going to probably take a year at least to get a real answer.
Long, long time. Mark Weiss, thanks so much for your analysis. Appreciate it.